I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Or just like, I just wanted you to kind of talk. So just, what's your name? Where are you from?
My name's Craig Poling. I'm from Perry, Ohio.
Okay.
I spend most of my time in Mentor, but I'm Lake County.
Great. What kind of hobbies do you have, Craig?
Well, obviously running is it's probably my biggest hobby. I was a golfer for many, many years, and then a couple years ago I took up running more seriously, and it was like one or the other. So.
And you run marathons?
I run marathons, yes.
What is a marathon exactly?
It's 26.2 miles, and yeah.
So how many marathons have you ran?
I've run 9 marathons, full marathons.
Nice.
And I've run 1 Boston, and I've qualified for 1 Boston. The other marathons I've run, I've qualified for another Boston recently.
Okay.
And,
so training for a marathon, what's that like?
You know what, it's kind of, it's like, following a recipe or baking a cake or something. If you follow it, depending on what plan you're on, there's beginner, intermediate, and maybe advanced plans. And if you follow that plan, you really should achieve your goal. And if you cut corners, it's just like a recipe. It'll still come out, but it won't come out as well. So, but I followed a more advanced plan for my last couple marathons that I ran.
Okay. So how often do you run when you're training for a marathon?
If I'm training for a marathon, I usually run 5 days a week.
Okay.
And generally around, depending on how long into my training for when the marathon is, it's anywhere from like 40 to 65 miles a week.
So break it down per day, like you're running?
Per day. Well, I take 2 days off, and one day I run a long run, and it will go from anywhere from 10 to depending again where I am with my training, 10 miles to a 22 miler. And the 22 miler is generally 2 to 3 weeks before the actual marathon, and then you taper. And then aside from that, I usually run like 8 to 10 miles a day, and I don't really run 5s and 6s too much anymore.
So 8 to 10 miles a day to an average Joe, that seems like a lot. So what kind of ailments or issues can happen from running?
A lot of people have obviously issues with their muscles. They get injured because I've been blessed. I haven't had that. I started running a little later. I'm 55. I started running when I was like 46.
Okay.
So it's a lot of people have injuries and stuff like that if they run the amount of miles that I've run so far, and if they started much earlier. Some people have issues, but.
So where did you meet us at? Hydreight. Where'd you meet us?
I was signed up to run the Cleveland Marathon, and there's an expo prior to the marathon, and the whole week before if you run marathons, that you check the weather, not daily, it's literally hourly you check it, and I was checking it, and I saw that the weather was going to be hot, and as we got closer to the marathon, it was hotter and more humid, and I was becoming extremely frustrated and anxious about the marathon, about my run, because I don't do well in heat. I do very well in cold weather. And in very cold weather, I do well. I have no issues whatsoever. And so I was just pretty much out of my mind. And as we spoke earlier, I had one goal in running a marathon. And this particular marathon was to qualify for Boston. It wasn't to run 26 miles because I knew I could do that. And I probably would not have even considered running this marathon under the conditions of the Cleveland Marathon that day. But anyways, I said I'm gonna still give it my all. And while we were at the expo, I saw your station set up, and I asked a few questions to it was you and the other gentleman,
Johnny. Yep.
Johnny, and you explained to me about how it hydrates your muscles directly in your organs and your body, and one of my problems prior to trying to hydrate before a race is nothing sticks with me. I try to hydrate, but I am in the bathroom constantly, and no matter how hard I try to consume fluids, I have a hard time. So in talking to you and your partner, it made sense to me. And then one of you guys made the comment, said, you can get your IV before the race or you can get it after the race, and you kind of said it half jokingly, but it really wasn't. And because I know many of people that have run in those kind of conditions, and they're right in the medical tent getting an IV after the race. And I just said, you know what, that makes sense. And I took a leap of faith. And I don't know if that's kind of a stretch. I did believe what you were saying.
Yeah.
And I said I had nothing to lose, and I wanted to do the best. I trained extremely hard, for the marathon. And, I didn't want to have a bust out, because it's not like, this one didn't go well, you can just run another one next week. It's like, after you run a marathon, you really have another month before you can run another one, because your body really, it takes its toll.
Yeah. So what did we do for you there at the expo?
Well, I consulted with you, and I trusted you with your opinion, because this is what you do. And I asked you, I said, what would you recommend for me, based on my history, because I do struggle late in marathons. I always have. But that's really not that uncommon. Most people do after 20 miles. And you suggested, I don't even know which one you did suggest, but
it was just our basic B vitamins in a liter bag, a liter infusion that we gave you. So.
Yeah, and I did it, and I will tell you this too. I lost a little bit of weight since I've been training, and I'm cold all the time. And during the time that I was getting the IV, my extremities warmed up, and even like now, if you touch my hands, are cold.
Yeah.
And they generally are, and they were warm that night when I went to bed, and they just, I could tell a difference in my body right when I was done. Even when I was getting the, probably about halfway done, I could tell things in my body were
So you
different.
got the IV before, obviously the day before.
I got it the day before the marathon. I stopped up on Friday, and then you recommended, coming back the next day, which is what I did. I came back on Saturday. And you said I didn't really have to schedule an appointment, so I just showed up, and your partner was there. He administered the IV, and again, as I got the IV, I felt a difference by the time that was halfway administered.
So then, the day of the race, how did you feel that morning?
I was still nervous. I was still like, I'm just looking at the weather. I want to say it was like 77 at the start of the race, which is ridiculously hot. I've never run in those kind. I'm not any kind of distance. I've run 5, maybe even up to 10 miles, but I just was shaking my head, thinking, what am I doing? And but I started off where I needed to be, and I kept that pace pretty much the entire 26 miles.
So during the race, how'd you feel during the race?
I felt good. I still hydrated, and I still took a couple of goos. I probably took at least 3 goos, maybe every 45 minutes. A goo is it's a liquid gel, which is filled with carbohydrates and I think a little bit of sugars and stuff like that, but mostly carbs. And there's I want to say there's 120 calories in it, and it helps hydrate your body, and it helps fuel your body for putting it through a marathon. And anybody that runs a marathon knows.
So I know you stated to me earlier that you were running with the guy you were training with.
Yeah.
So what happened with that?
I was training with a guy that was 10 years younger than me, who was faster than me, and who's run much better times than me. And we ran the first 15 miles together, and at 15 miles, because of the conditions, he faltered, and not because of his training. He did 15 miles really. We were well under an 8-minute mile, which is pretty good. And he didn't have the IV, and I did, and I'm like, I was still feeling it, and I'm like,
What did you feel? Did you feel anything different?
I just felt good. My muscles felt good. I wasn't sore. And usually you just become fatigued, and you just can't maintain your pace. I mean, people that run long distance know that after a certain while, your pace changes. And if you look at my pace, I almost every mile was under 8 minutes. And then I think the last couple miles I had maybe 8:20s, but still very solid miles for that late in a marathon. And for someone that's my age especially.
So then you finished obviously pretty well.
You know, I won my age group, which is something I've never done. And as I told you, Ryan, my time was good, but it wasn't fantastic. And it was really just, it was more a testament how poorly everybody else did because of the conditions. And that time that I had would have put me in the top 10%, but never would have, you know, I won my division by 20 minutes, and that's never
awesome.
happened. I mean, I was the only Boston qualifier out of my entire division. And people, you know, in fact, I ran that marathon with a group of the Northeast Ohio Running Club members, and not one of them came probably 15 minutes within their, you know, the time that they hoped to finish that marathon.
Wow. So how'd you feel after the marathon was over?
You know what? I felt really good. I had mentioned to you I had run Boston. It was about a month before that, maybe about 5 weeks before that. So I really didn't. I was trained up and I tapered again, and I didn't. You know, I didn't know where I was with my training. I really didn't. But when I ran Boston, the last I hit mile 22. After mile 22, I completely hit a wall, like I've never hit before. In fact, I was like, I'm never doing this again kind of wall. That's how much pain I was in, and that's how bad I cramped up. But after Cleveland, you know, I cramped a little bit in the late miles, but I got through it, which generally I don't. And you know, you can run through pain, but when you cramp, you cannot run through cramps.
Yeah.
But I really felt fine after that marathon. In Boston, I could barely walk. And for probably a week and a half, I could barely walk. And when I was done running Cleveland, I really felt fine. I had a little tightness in one of my, in my calf, my left calf. But aside from that, I recovered. It was night and day. My recovery was under much worse conditions.
Yeah, and there was a lot of people that day who had a lot of issues, a lot of medical issues.
Oh, just about everybody that came. I know a lot of people that you know, that did not finish. I know you say DNF, and aside from that, people were, like I said, 15 to a half an hour off their expected finishing time, and for me to have my personal best time under those conditions
It's pretty amazing.
I was amazed. I was. I blew myself away.
Yeah.
I truly, with how I felt and how I did, and knowing my history.
So what was your experience? Let's go back to like when you were getting the IV. What was your experience like getting that IV and
you know,
getting the infusion? So what were you kind of feeling like at that time? Like,
well, like I said, I felt different as the IV was being administered to me. Mm-hmm. No doubt, I was like, you know, my fingers warmed up. I felt much, you know, I felt like I had some energy, but, you know, I don't know. You know, they say it could have been a placebo, whatever, but, you know, and I'll tell you, as I mentioned to you, a placebo will help you run a 5K, maybe a 10K, but it's not going to carry you through a marathon.
yeah.
You know, I felt hopeful that this was what I needed. I mean, and I did, and I said, you know, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to try to run a marathon. I'm going to try to do this as best as I can. And if I need an advantage or something that would help, I think, give me an advantage or accomplish it, I figured, why not?
Yeah.
And it was, you know, as far as the cost, I didn't, you know, the cost of a marathon or parachute, this would have been, if I would have known how this was going to affect me, I would have paid a lot more.
So what would you tell other people running marathoners?
I would say people that have a problem with hydration. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you don't have problems late in a marathon and you run a great time, then maybe you don't need it, but not many people that run marathons have that. You know, very few. In fact, I know very few people. Most people, like I said, after mile 20. But if you want to feel like a certain level of energy that you probably have never felt in the course of running a marathon, especially late in the marathon, I don't know why you wouldn't do this. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I have no idea, because there's no chance I will not be doing this again. You know, prior to any marathon.
Yeah. So for the casual runner too, or the casual just athlete.
You know, I guess if you want that boost, I don't really know. I haven't taken it for that. I would like to try it.
Yeah.
You know, I know that the next time there is a local marathon, or, you know, that we'll have a group of people that will get together and you know, we'll have a party. And, you know, there's no doubt we'll use your service.
Yeah.
The casual runner, I really can't speak because I haven't used it for that. But there's no doubt.
You don't seem like a casual runner.
I'm really not.
Extreme.
Yeah, things have changed the past couple years with me, and and I, you know, I train hard, and I don't train anymore to just run, you know, to run that distance. I really train to try to hit a number and to try to do better than I've done in the past.
Yeah.
So
and that's great. I mean, that's what we're here for. We're here to help you kind of get over that hump, get over whatever kind of obstacle that may occur, whether it's the weather or something, the things, the forces of nature we can't, you know.
Right.
You can't change that as a runner.
No, and like I said, runners check the weather every day, and most runners do well in cold, but in heat and humidity, which was the Cleveland Marathon.
Yeah.
You know, it'll make you mentally crazy the day before. And if you want to put yourself at ease and maybe give yourself a little advantage, you know, just to, you'd be stupid to do it yourself to not take advantage of a service like this that will not only make that day better, but the next 2 weeks better. Your recovery is so much better, because if you could have seen me walking after I ran Boston, I mean, it wasn't just me. It was pretty much anybody that ran it, and even Cleveland. It was a night and day difference between how I felt in much worse conditions, and the only difference was, you know, was the IV that I received. You know.
So you came to us at the expo. So
I came, yeah.
I mean, our app actually allows us to come out to you. So would you take advantage of that, or would you?
100%. There's no way I wouldn't take advantage of this on any marathon that I've ever run. There's no chance. Even if it didn't increase, I didn't feel like it improved my time. My recovery was just ridiculously more pleasant. I mean, there really wasn't much of a recovery because I felt fine the next day.
Yeah.
Like I said, I did have some tightness in my left leg, and I think that was just more of I pulled a muscle or something. But you know, that has since gone, and I'm back on track.
Yeah. And you qualified for Boston again?
I did. I qualified for Boston by almost 7 minutes, 6 minutes. I mean, you can check my time. My name is Craig Pulling, and if you look at the Cleveland Marathon results in the 55 to 59 age group, or even check my Boston time, you know, you Google the results, you'll see exactly how I did. And you know, check the weather that day, which. So.
Well, that's about all the questions I have. Did you have any questions for me?
No, you know, I'm just grateful that you guys were at the expo, and I stumbled upon you, and I asked the questions, and you know, you guys gave me the answers, and but as far as do I think it helped me, I mean, 100%. I mean, there's no chance I run what I run, or I accomplish what I accomplished when everybody around me. I mean, I think there was about 1,700, 1,800 people that ran Cleveland. I was like 104. I finished very high, and that isn't usually me. Yeah. And it's not because my time was that great. It's just because those conditions were tough on everybody, and they didn't. I don't know how many people took advantage of your service, but
yeah, quite a few. But it was good.
Well, I wonder what percentage were ahead of me. I bet you. I bet you it was.
I don't know. No, we didn't look at everybody's results. So
Yeah.
maybe we should have.
Maybe you should have, but
maybe we would have got them to sit in the seat instead of you.
But but again, people used your service for other reasons too, and they just even if but I used them because I felt like I needed it to accomplish what I was trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Great. All right.
All right.
I guess you guys are all set?
I don't know. Could you hear anything?
So I know that microphone specifically has like a really good limiter on it. So like white noise behind actual dialogue actually is limited out. Like when it produces itself back onto the video clip it saves.
Yeah.
It actually will clear it out
We'll
pretty well.
filter it.
For a project, which I presume that's probably what it's going to be used for, you'll be able to coat that with some sort of music and underlay it with something else, and then you'll be able to drop all those levels and talk there and hear that. So, yeah.
I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, this sucks. Like that rain is just
I mean,
so loud.
you like what you can get.
I can't believe it. I can't believe this weather. I just cannot believe it. I mean,
First time. I mean, I think we set a record for how many consistent inches of rain we've had in like the past year or something.
My backyard is a swamp.
yeah.
I mean, it's complete.
We have a pool, and I've had to take water out at 3. This is the 4th time, and it's above the skimmer, and it's.
Oh yeah.
I'm just, and then I'm draining it in my yard that is a swamp already. It's absolutely, and not to mention we haven't been in it one time this year. I mean, it's not. We haven't had any. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm just like, holy shit.
You don't have a marathon coming up. I was gonna say, how do you run in this?
I ran. It seems like when I run, it's not raining. I have my own business, so I can make time. Like I ran yesterday about 6 o'clock, and it was fine.
Yeah, it was perfect.
And then it rained afterwards, and it's I took today off, and I only because I knew I was doing this today, and I knew I wasn't going to get a chance, but I would have planned on running today, and it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still been getting out. Like I said, it's raining a lot, but it's not raining all the time.
Yeah.
So.
You run in the snow too outside?
Yeah. You know what? When I trained, no, I did. I only did two of my training runs were on a treadmill.
Okay.
I run with a group of people. They are so hardcore that they just run out. And we would run in this weather. If we had because we're meeting at this time.
Yeah.
It would not matter what the weather's like. We would just run it. I mean, we ran one time. Remember when that extreme cold, like we had? I mean, it's hard to remember it now, but we had some days where it was just, like 8 degrees, 9 degrees with the hard wind. We would run in that. I would be like, these guys are doing it. I'm doing it, and I always did. Like I said, I did really well in the cold weather.
Yeah.
I mean,
what are you running in? What shoes do you run in?
I have the Cleveland Marathon. I got those Nike the Vaporfly. But I had a pair in Boston too. But the pair I had in Boston it was a little small because you only get 100 miles out of one of those pairs of shoes. So
they just fall apart, right?
Well, the soles, it's kind of like, like if you have one of those cars with the expensive tires, they're expensive, but I mean, you could run on it, or you still walk on them, I think. But as far as running, they, after your first time, you'll see that the rubber on the bottom is starting to
winter.
Usually, just like Adidas is my favorite.
Okay.
They have the Boost. Yeah, they have this Boost right here. This has a lot of cushion. I'm just trying to any shoe that's heavily cushioned, that'll help absorb all the all the striking and stuff like that I do. That's what I'll run in, and the Adidas seems to be the best for me.
Nice.
So, but there's a lot of good shoes out there. I would never really, but the Vaporflies I really do think are the real deal. I don't know if you saw any of the people running Boston, all the elite runners.
Yeah, they all
100% of them had the Vaporflies. And
they all got paid to wear them, probably.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, but they're starting to hit it. They're trying to hit a certain time, and if it didn't work, they would. Again, that's probably a lot more mental than anything else. If you feel good about it, that would help you. But again, I mean, a mental maybe a little bit, but there's no chance when you're from 15 to 26. It's like. you know how like when Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan till you get punched in the face, and then you get punched in. It's like you're just survival.
Yeah.
It's like that weather was the punch in the face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like you got punched in the face. Now you just
keep going.
And I needed. There's no chance I would have done what I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that. I absolutely. Everybody else knew that. I didn't even have to tell them. They just were like. They looked at me like I was a rock star when I was done, with that Cleveland Marathon.
Yeah.
They were just like,
You are. You're a rock star.
well, I don't know about that, but I think it was more indicative to my training because I did train hard, and that just helped me not fall apart. But
Yeah.
I did. I put the miles in, and I did what I trained so much. I used to just, like I said, you have the different plans. The first plan is the people that just want to. I mean,
Yeah.
I finished in 3:28, and my first, people finish marathons in 5, 6, 7 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, that's walking 26 miles. That's not running a marathon. I mean, you can walk a 4-minute if you go 4 miles an hour, which is a nice walk. You'll do it in 6 hours, and you'll see that's.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give you an idea. So when people tell you they do a marathon, they say, "Oh, I did 6.5 hours." You stop for lunch.
Well, all right, Owen. What do you think? I mean, do you
We'll
have
see.
any other? I know. I asked for your help. a little bit, but you didn't really give much.
I guess in
Do you think it looked okay? Do you think it was?
well, visually, yeah, it's a
Okay.
pretty traditional setup. It's definitely sound in that department. I guess with audio, I will definitely play with that and work with it
Yeah.
as best as you can. We can help you do that.
Yeah, but I've never given an interview before, so this is my first interview.
Yeah, so I would say just a comment. Yeah, absolutely. You were yourself. It was a conversation.
Yeah,
And that's what we want. We wanted you to feel comfortable. Yeah.
Well, and honestly, the product. If I didn't believe in it, if I thought it was smoke and mirrors, I'd be like,
yeah.
I would, but.
Yeah.
No chance. There's no way anybody could ever argue with me. Oh yeah, because how many marathons I've run and how many times. There was a Cleveland Marathon. It was my, I think it was my second or third. I think it was like 2015. It was very hot. You probably didn't know, but it was probably very similar to the conditions of this one. And I had to walk the last 6 miles. Literally walk. I could every time I tried to run. It just grabs you, and your calves would just, and then you see those people that are walking like they can't run. That's cramping. It's and in Boston this year because it was so humid, everybody cramped.
Yeah.
It was everybody cramped. There was I don't know if you noticed at the expo, the Cleveland one, they probably had. I bet you they had 500 people that went from the full marathon to the half marathon the day before. At the expo.
They switched.
They switched because they were like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I'm not, honest, you'd have to be stupid to run a marathon in that kind of weather unless you had a purpose or unless you really, I'm just really going to take it easy because, you can't put, you
I work in
can't.
an emergency room, and we had 15 people come in with heat exhaustion.
And they probably ran 6-hour marathons. You know what I mean?
These were people who did not look like you. They were not in shape, and I'm like, why are they running? What made you think you were going to run this marathon, especially in this heat? What is wrong?
And
with
like
you?
I said, they probably didn't even really run it. They probably
And I'm like, I'm in shape. I wouldn't even have gone out there that day. But
like I said, that year, I think it was 15. Oh my God, it was ridiculous. I didn't even feel tired. When your body starts cramping, you're done. It's like game over.
Yeah.
And I started to cramp a little bit. I'm just like, oh my God, and it starts like imagine like someone has like a shock thing on you and they hit it and then they let go of it, and that's what it's like. They hit it and all of a sudden they hit it and they don't let go, and that's when you fall. And but I started getting those like sensations. I'm like, and I'm like, I was like, oh. But I would say I had the 325. Again, I had to run a 330. I had to run under 335.
Yeah.
And the 325 pacer passed me at about, I want to say it was like mile 22. So I knew I had like 10 minutes to spare. So I could have dropped down 2 minutes a mile.
Yeah.
Like I could have ran a 10-minute mile for my last 4 miles and still been fine.
Yeah.
And I didn't. But I could show you my mile. Actually, they're very similar to Boston, except Boston I was slower in the beginning because you have to be because there's so many people.
Yeah.
But my middle miles were all 740, 740, they were all good. But then my last ones at Boston, I did 11-minute, a 10-minute, a 9-minute,
Because Boston has a lot of hills. Does Cleveland
It
have
does.
hills?
You know what? It did at the end. The end, I thought Cleveland was tough. And Cleveland has a lot of turns too.
Yeah.
Which, when I was done running it, it said 26. It was almost a quarter mile long, which it's because you don't, if you don't take the turns and you're passing people, you run a little farther.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of turns in Cleveland, and there was some hills. But Boston is, that's like the Pebble Beach of.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's only, I want to say like 25% of the people that run Boston requalify.
Oh my gosh.
It's very tough. But I thought for sure I was going to,
Yeah.
and I didn't. So. But,
Next time.
well, if I didn't, I would have never learned your product because I would have said I don't have to run Cleveland.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I really wouldn't have run it.
Yeah.
In fact, my wife, a group of people ran Toledo 2 weeks later after Boston, and I ran the half marathon because I still wasn't recovered, and I took it easy. It was sort of a training run for Cleveland. But these people had all trained, and they were trying to train to qualify for Boston, and the conditions were perfect. It was like 39 degrees at the start,
Nice.
and like 45 at the finish, which that's like a 10. That's a 10 out of 10 for running conditions because you don't sweat, you don't get tired, and it was super flat course. These people all knocked it out of the park. All did Toledo.
Yeah.
They did really well, and I'm sitting there watching, and I'm thinking, mother. I'm like,
Why didn't you do that?
I'm thinking 23 seconds, that's all I needed was 23 seconds better, which that's not, I could have done that if I would have known. I just refused to look at my watch because I didn't want to get more mental. But they all did it, and then I'm thinking, the pressure was, because they were all going to Boston, and I'm like, when my wife was going, I'm like, I'm not going to carry your luggage.
Yeah.
If I can't go and be happy for you guys because that's just how I am.
Yeah.
I'll be saying, why did I do it?
Yeah.
And that's the thing when you train, you're for a certain day, because it starts here and then the marathon. The weather on that day is like everything.
Yeah.
It really is, and you don't know that's the biggest variable on your performance is what the weather's like. I mean, you could put the training in, but if you have Cleveland conditions. And that was probably, we haven't had a day like that, I don't think, since, 80, where was it, 86 and 90 something? Yeah, that at the finish.
Yeah.
We haven't had that. And of course, it has to fall on the day that.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess one thing that I did think about just now, since this is kind of like, okay, it's part of your story, let's go as a narrative somewhere on another project. I guess when I'm doing visuals and strictly video, you can go for hero shots, which are kind of like those very key symbolic type of shots that do one sort of action. You can do the same with audio, which is like phrases that are like, okay, this is very in touch with the brand. Like, Hydreight really helped me do this, or Hydreight did, or you can fill in the blank. But I think if there's any type of maybe phrasing that would work good as like sort of a closing statement of some sort, or we can kind of just like run through and bullet point them. I mean, it really doesn't matter. Those are just real good.
Yeah, no, I would say you tell me. Again, if I didn't believe in your product, you're a small business. I totally want to help because I believe in the product, and I want you guys to, you deserve, you guys deserve, all, everything you have coming.
So what did Hydreight help you do? So let's try to maybe
And also, just for you, as you're stating what you're going to state, be sure to key in on Hydreight, like I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's
Well, Hydreight, it was my, it helped me run the best marathon. It accentuated my training. It helped me run my best time in the worst conditions, and my recovery was, I didn't really have much of a recovery because I felt fine. And that anytime you run a marathon, for a couple weeks, you're not even really supposed to run. Because
So it helped you get over that hump.
oh, it totally did. It helped my muscles. I felt really good after. I was like, I think I'm supposed to, because I know how shitty I felt after Boston, and which was, just 4 or 5 weeks before that, and
Yeah.
I felt I was miserable, and I was done. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. This is too painful, and
Yeah.
I didn't feel like that at all. And so.
Sound good?
Yeah,
Oh,
that
was-
was a good. That was a very
Were we?
That was
oh, I didn't know we were
man.
live. I thought we were
Good.
just.
That was
Oh,
good. That sounded great.
I didn't even know. I thought that we were gonna.
I mean, yeah, basically, yeah. All
Okay.
the stuff.
Well, you edit it and
Off the cuff.
try to make me not look like an
Cut around
idiot.
Everything,
No,
yeah.
no, you look great. So that's always
No, but it did turn out well. Yeah.
Okay.
Great conversation.
Well, thanks.
yeah.
I completely believe in your product. Completely. There's no, smoke and mirrors. No chance. I
Good.
mean, there's
Thanks.
so. All right,
Appreciate it.
Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Sir,
Yeah.
thanks
Yeah.
for tonight. Thank you.
Yeah.
Also for
Oh, he
sharing
needs
your story.
your,
That was awesome.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Disconnect there.
Do you want food to take home or?
I know. Like I said, I have a right.